Now, let's explore mixing a little bit. The pyramid sort of technique for mixing is we like to do it in sort of a linear fashion, step to step to step to step. So I'm going to take this chorus, or actually I'll take a later chorus because it's probably got a little bit more going on. Yeah, let me check out the end. Cool, that looks good. So we like to teach when you're mixing to do it in sort of a process, doing volume first and then panning, and then adding your dynamic and EQ plugins, and then doing some spatial effects like reverbs and things like that. And then we get to our mix, okay? So that's the final mix where we bounce everything out. Personally, I like to start all of my mixes out with all the faders down between -12 and -20. So I'm going to use a dedicated mixer. I'm going to hit 2 on my number pad above the QWERTY keyboard, and that takes us to a screen set that has a mixer all set up. Now, if you don't have this mixer set up, then what's going to happen is you're going to get just another arrange view. What you need to do is open up under Window, open up a mixer, and then just close the tracks area behind it. I like to make it nice and big. And what I'll also do is under View, I'm going to look at my channel strip components and add notes. So I can actually type down here if I need to take notes on any specific tracks. I'm going to hit 1 to go back to the main window. Okay, I got something going on there. All right, screen set 2. Here are all my stacks. So my drums, I have, what I considered was a good balance. But I'm going to take all of these faders. I'm going to leave the summing fader where they all come in. I'm going to leave that up. But everything else, I'm going to make sure that I turn it all down. So let's see. All the way through there. Just turn everything down. Because I can see at my output, see that red light? That means that we're going over what our system can provide, and we're going to get distortion. Okay, so let's hit play again. All right, now I got a lot of room. So let's check out the vocal first. So I'm going to leave the vocal up there. All of my other tracks sound fairly good there. I'm just going to adjust their balance a little bit. More than you think, more than you. More than you think, babe. More than you think, more than you think. More. There's a bass here. It's just very quiet. More than you think, more than you. More than you think, babe. More than you think, more than you think, more than you think. More than you. Okay, so I kind of have all those volumes straightened out. I'm going to take these buses off because I'm kind of cheating a little bit. Now I've got a kick stack, and I can see that's where all of my kicks are coming in, because bus 6, anything that has an output of bus 6 is going into that track. I think what I might want to do is use a little bit more coloring so that I can really see what's what. So this is the kick stack. Since the other stacks that I have are kind of pink, I'm going to make this one pink too. Which color is it exactly? I think it's that color. There we go. Remember, we can always check out what color it is just by shift selecting. Or I'm sorry, command selecting. And select the color. There we go. I'm going to do the same with the snare. Now the snare I don't have opened up, because if I go to the main window, yep, I can see it right there. It's not opened up. So I want to open up my snares and open up my overheads. More than you think, more than you.
than you think, babe. More than you think. More than you think. More than you think. You think. More than you think. More.
Okay, so I've kind of changed the colors on there, so it's a little bit easier for me to get around. You can see my snares, you can see my kick.
You think. More than you think. More than you. More than you think, babe. More than you think.
So I have some toms here. As you can see, my toms are already panned somewhat. What I want to do is actually listen to the overheads to see, okay, this is a floor tom and this is a rack tom. So I want to check out in my overheads. We pan the overheads, the ones that are directly over the kit that are a left and right microphone. I want to have a listen to them to make sure that I've got my floor toms and my rack toms panned appropriately. So you can hear the rack is on the right and the floor tom's on the left. Yep, that's the floor tom. Okay, cool. So that's where you can check where everything needs to be panned in space. Maybe the snare is going to be slightly off center. So listen to that as well. I'm going to take these out of solo. Okay, the snare is definitely a little right. Cool. Let's check out that.
More than you think. More than you.
Okay, so that's a decent volume balance. Now, what about popping on a plugin so we can get this bass up a little bit? Now, the bass, I could use compression to get that volume up. Let's see what happens if I just take a compressor and pop it on.
More than you think. More than you. More than you think, babe.
Now, the bass already has a lot of really good sustain. You gotta remember that a compressor is basically an automated volume knob that we're telling it to turn down and turn up this sound over time. I'm just using it right now basically as a gain stage.
More than you think. More than you.
It's not really adding any timbre to the sound, though. I mean, it might be giving us more volume, and it might compress a little bit if the bass got really hot. But what I'm hearing right now is the bass is just kind of weak. I'm going to solo the bass and have a listen. Yeah, and it's got like a little bit of distortion on it. I think we need to add some bottom to it and give it some personality. Now, it does have distortion on it, so usually I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to go to Amp Designer. So Bass Amp Designer is specifically made for basses. And what I'm hoping is that the compression settings, the EQ, and the model are going to add a little bit of extra personality to this bass. To take it out, let's hit this little power button. It's a pretty radical difference, right? It's filling out a lot of those frequencies that I felt we were missing. Now, there's the amp, which is this head that we're looking at. It's basically like in real life, we'd be jacking our bass directly into that. But we also have a direct box. And what the direct box does is it just takes the bass clean directly into the console. But this direct box, console I'm talking about if we were actually going to a mixer. But in this direct box, we also have tone shaping. So if I pull this all the way to the right, it's this little fader here, and have a listen. Now I'm going to change tone. And then we can actually mix that between the direct box and the amp. Then to the right, I have this speaker, and I can grab the mic and move it around on the speaker. Choose a different mic. I kind of like the condenser. I compress it a little bit harder. It's taking a lot for the compressor to kick in. It tells me that this bass sound is probably very low. I'm going to try feeding it a little bit more volume. I can do that by command drag this bass amp down a little. And I'm going to use that compressor just to give us a little bit more volume into the bass amp. All right, now let's listen to it in the track. So as you hear, we can pretty radically alter the sound using a bass amp. There's also pedal board if you're using guitars and things like that, that uses, it's all these guitar effects that you can basically pop on. So that's kind of fun. Then they also have Amp Designer, which is a amp modeler that has everything from, you know, classic Tweed amplifiers, like Fender Tweed, down to something like what they call the Sunshine Head, which is probably an orange. So these are all really great ways that we can kind of shape the timbre of the sound. But for now, I think my bass is okay where it's at. Now this vocal is actually bounced with effects. So I'm not going to really worry about that. Let's check out this bass. Whoa, subby. Let's try putting it through the same bass amp. So I'm holding Command and Option to copy this plugin over. More than you think, more than you, more than you think, babe. More than you think, more than you think, more than you think. Now some people would immediately go for the overheads and just try and compress them. So I'm going to pop a compressor on there. But the compressor that I'm going to use is going to be slow. It's not going to be fast. So if I use a fast compressor, it's going to sound jittery and kind of weird. I want it to sound natural, so I'm going to use this Opto. These circuit types we'll go into in a later Logic class, but just to let you know, Platinum, very fast. VCA, really, really, really fast. FET, fast, but has a lot of character. Vintage VCA, vintage FET, these are modeled after old units. That they have kind of a similar characteristic in that they're very fast, but they'll have a varying degree of what frequencies and what timbres are going to be let through with this compressor. Opto is actually the first kind of compressor they ever had, called a photo-optical compressor. And it's nice and slow, and when I'm using something like overheads, I want the overheads to go psh. I don't want them to go psh. Because that's what would happen with a fast compressor, is that we'd be pulling the volume down very quickly. And what I want is actually more sustain out of the overheads. So what I want to do is just kind of even out the loud to the soft bits of the overheads. So I'm going to use Opto. Turn the attack way up, turn the release way up. But I'm going to set the ratio fairly high. Now what's ratio? Well, it's basically how much we're compressing. A ratio of 5:1 means that 1/5 of the sound that would normally go past this threshold is going to make it past. So let's have a listen. So as you can hear, it sounds like well, obviously it's louder, but we're also getting more of the splash out of the cymbals.
More than you think, more than you think.
Now, maybe on the overheads, I'd want to take out some of the low end. So I'll open up an EQ. We can open up an EQ just by double-clicking up here, or place it right after the compressor. And what some people would do is go in here and turn on a low-cut filter to take out some of the low ends out of the overheads. I don't always do this, but you know, it's kind of it's a good habit to get into. And I'm adding just a little bit of brilliance on the cymbals, pulling up this EQ, which is a shelf EQ. So it's a low cut, that's a high shelf. Okay, so high shelf means everything beyond this point is getting affected. Low cut means everything beyond this point is getting affected. Then I also have parametric EQs, which allow me to single out certain frequencies. Let's try that.
More than you think, more than you think. More than you think.
Now, remember how the snares are all summed together? I could pop a little compressor on all of the snares. Just give the snares a little bit more pop.
More than you think, more than you, more than you think, babe. More than you think, more than you, more than you think, babe. More than you think, more than you think.
Now let's check out that kick. Oh, there's some like weird low taiko thing going on. Mr. Taiko, I think you're going to actually go out just directly a bus 10. So a bus 10 just goes to all drums, which is going to go to stereo out. There we go. That leaves me with the kick. That sounds just like a kick. Ah, the kick sounds a little weak. I'm going to try soloing. So that's the kick beater. Both kind of tight and kind of weak. Let's see what we can do.
More
Okay, he's doing something called feathering the kick, which means that his foot, when it hits the kick and the kick mallet hits the front head, it kind of rebounds a little bit. One way to get around that, I'm going to show you a pro tip. Underneath the compressor, I'm going to use an enveloper. And the enveloper is really going to shape the transient of this kick. So I can choose more high end, more low end. I can choose how long it takes for that kick to die away. So I'm going to try and open this up a little bit. And you remember how we were talking about strip silence? It sounds like that might be a really good idea here. Let me go back to this window, go to my drums, hit Control X, and let's see how this does.
than more than you think, more than you.
That's a bit conservative. It's still letting a lot through. Let me grab an EQ. So I'm just filtering out the super low stuff, which there isn't really much of. Maybe get a little bit of a higher. It's the beater of the kick. This is the low end of the kick. This is all the mid-range. I'm just be really drastic about the low, like the mid-range. I'm hoping I can pick up more of the kick somewhere else, maybe in the overheads or in the room.
More than you think, more than you, more than you think, babe.
Well, the kick is definitely coming through more. That's cool. So that's the basic process of creating your volume changes, doing your volume changes, then your panning, then adding compression, and then adding EQ, and then just slowly adding your track up until you get to the point where you have a good mix. Now, the other thing I want to talk about was grouping, because we talked about creating stacks, but we need to talk a little bit about creating groups so that if we touch one fader, we can actually affect other faders.